Okay, so today I'm going to present to you a work we have been based on a larger scale project that we have been working on, the Developmental Psychology Lab at the University of Cyprus. You see here some of the names of our team, Mr. Panayiotis Stavrinides, myself, Konstantina Dimitriou, Emily Nikiforu, Lukia Tricha, and Stelios Georgiou. The work where I'm going to present to you today is about the effect of parenting style on bullying and cyberbullying and victimization, and the mediating role of peer attachment relationships. The purpose of our study was first to examine the longitudinal effect of the parenting style on both conventional and cyber forms of bullying and victimization. And the other main goal was to examine whether this effect was mediated or not by peer attachment styles. And we focused our work on early adolescent students. Why should this study be of any interest to any of us? Well, first, a number of studies have supported the link between parenting style and maladaptive behaviors, such as bullying in children and adolescents. By parenting styles, we examined the authoritarian parental style, the permissive, and the authoritative parental style. Permissive is when the parent does not set clear boundaries and there is much freedom to the child, but at the same time there are not many high expectations. On authoritarian parenting style, we have high expectations, very clear boundaries, but also very strict rules. And then we have the authoritative parenting style, or flexible parenting, in which we have clear expectations, clear set of rules, high expectations, but we also have the democratic practices in where children in the family are allowed to express their opinions and negotiate decisions. So research tells us that authoritarian parental style has been related strongly with bullying behaviors and also bullying victimization behaviors. The permissive parental style is mostly related to victimization and also to a lesser extent to bullying behaviors. And we have authoritative parenting style, which seems to be a protective factor against both bullying and victimization. On the other hand, research also underscores the importance of peer relationships concerning the bullying victimization phenomenon. And because we are talking about adolescents, we know from a developmental perspective that during this age, students start to shift their focus of their relationship. Focus shifts from the parental relationships and moves more to the peer relations. By 14 years old, the peer becomes much more prominent than the parental relationship. We also consider how closely related are peer attachment, parental style, and bullying victimization behaviors. And we also consider the time precedence in that the parental relationship obviously precedes peer relations. And based on these three facts, we hypothesized that by early adolescence, and by early adolescence we mean the last 2 grades of elementary school and the first 2 grades of high school, we expect that the parenting style effect on bullying victimization would be mediated to some extent by the peer attachment relationship. In the study, participants were 861 children and adolescents. Mean age was 13 years old. Gender was approximately 50% boys, 50% girls. And with respect to the classroom level, we had almost half our sample from elementary school and almost the other half from high school. The variables we studied were for bullying, we used the BBQ questionnaire, conventional bullying, conventional victimization, The personal experiences checklist, we use that to measure cyberbullying and cyber victimization. We use the inventory of parent and peer attachment to measure peer attachment through the contrast of peer trust, peer communication, and peer alienation. Parental authority questionnaire was used to measure permissive, authoritative, and authoritarian/flexible parenting. And we also use some demographic variables as covariates in our model. These were gender, male or female, and educational level, elementary school or high school. The procedure: first, we secure permission from the Cyprus Ministry of Education. We contacted randomly selected schools. We inform participants about the purpose of our study and secure their informed consent from both participants and their parents. There were 3 time waves in which we collected data. In time 1, this was in December, we collected data on parenting styles and bullying levels, both cyber and conventional forms. On time 2, which was held in January, and there was a 6 weeks interval between time 1 and time 2. We measured peer attachment relationships, and then we came back at time 3, which were 12 weeks interval from time 2, in which we measured again the bullying levels, both conventional and cyber forms. Results: the psychometric properties of the instruments were examined. Results showed acceptable internal consistency and structural validity for the most part. There were some items that were thrown out due to statistical analysis, and especially with peer attachment, there seemed to be a problem with the communication scale, since it was really highly correlated with peer trust. And if you are familiar with this instrument, I think it's something that comes up more often than not. So since we are using this variable as a mediator in our model, and we would expect issues with multicollinearity, and we decided to leave peer communication out of subsequent analysis. This is our model 1. We examined first the effect of parenting style on forms of bullying. As you can see, parenting style affects all forms of bullying, both conventional and cyber. Permissive parenting style had a positive effect on bullying, conventional bullying only, while authoritarian parenting had a positive effect on all 4 forms of bullying victimization, and flexible parenting had a negative effect on all 4 forms of bullying. You can see that we have the initial bullying victimization levels in our model as covariates, and we see some, as expected, some significant effects, even though it seems that within an 18-week interval, the effect of bullying on bullying 18 weeks later is not that strong. So we know that parenting affects change in bullying even within 18 weeks time. As I said, we also had in this model the effects of gender and the educational level as covariates. And then we proceed to model 2. Model 2 was similar to model 1, with the exception that now we have added in our model the peer attachment relationship variables as mediating the relationship between parenting styles and bullying victimization. As you can see, trust and alienation seem to fully mediate all effect of parenting styles on bullying victimization. The only effect that remained present significant in model 2 was the effect from flexible parenting on conventional bullying, and this effect was the size was reduced to half. but other than that, all other effects were turned out to be non-statistically significant in this model. We see some significant effects from parenting styles on peer attachment, and we see some significant effects from peer attachment, peer trust, and peer alienation on time 3 bullying and victimization levels. And again, you can see our covariates in the model. What do we conclude? Parenting seems to be a significant predictor of all forms of bullying victimization, conventional and cyber, in early adolescence, even when accounting for bullying levels 18 weeks before. We see flexible parenting and authoritative parenting having the most significant effects. But at the same time, we understand that while parenting seems to be an important predictor, it seems that peer attachment seems to be the channel through which parenting actually affects bullying and victimization behaviors, both conventional and cyber. Thus, the hypothetical developmental shift of focus from the parental relationship or the parenting practices shifts during this age, and the focus is the effects comes mostly through peer relations. We also see peer alienation having a greater negative effect on bullying victimization than the positive effect of peer trust, and thus it would make sense to focus more our efforts on preventing alienation for children in early adolescence by building a sense of belonging to the group. The model explains more variance in conventional forms of bullying than cyber ones, and so we feel the need to address the need for potential different variables that might also affect more significantly cyber forms of bullying and victimization. Some of the major implications of our study is that parenting influences strongly adolescents' engagement in conventional and cyber forms of bullying, victimization. And this influence seems to be directed through peer attachment relationships. And through them, the effect goes on bullying victimization. So we have an established mediational model which clearly shows that there is a significant effect from parenting styles on bullying and victimization, both conventional and cyber. And we know that this effect is not direct, but is actually mediated through the effect of parenting on peer attachment relationship and through peer attachment relationships on bullying victimization. Therefore, it is important to acknowledge that parenting is significant for early adolescence, but at the same time, we need to acknowledge the fact that peer relationships seem to be the variable that has more impact has a direct impact on on bullying victimization behaviors at this developmental stage. Additional studies will be required to examine the simultaneous effect of other groups of variables, such as biological characteristics, psychopathic traits, personal beliefs, such as moral disengagement, in which Marina talked earlier, and environmental factors, such as school climate, classroom climate, community, etc. And this additional requirement is based on the fact that the variance explained in our variables, even though we accounted for bullying just 18 weeks before, there seems to be a lot of room for unexplained variance. Thus, there is a lot of other variables that come into play there. Okay, I think that concludes my presentation. Thank you again for your attention. Special thanks to all the people who made this study possible. And we'll welcome any questions, suggestions, or any comments you have to address. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.